Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to Link Up Leaders, your direct link to leaders in supply chain and e-commerce. My name is Lisa. I'm your producer and co-host, and I'm joined by Francois. Francois, your third live of the day. How you feeling?
Third live of the day. Going strong. We had that chai tea latte with the oat milk, I think, in there. So doing well.
Have more coffee now, even.
More
so
coffee.
Ready to go.
Yeah. There we go.
It is.
There we go.
Anybody in Atlanta shares what we're feeling. It is cold and wet and dreary and just makes you want to go home and go to bed, which is what Gilad should be doing because he is calling us all the way from Israel, but he is so kindly going to spend about an hour with us. Gilad Freimann with VAA Philippines. How are you doing?
Hey, how are you? Can I see this cup again of coffee?
Oh my!
I can show you mine.
Yes.
But Francois, was it coffee? Oh. Was it a mug?
No. This is just water.
All right.
I had enough coffee this morning. I have more coffee. I'm gonna crash around like 7 or 8 p.m.
Bad.
So I want to stay at a consistent level.
All right. Yeah, it's in here in Israel. It's like 10:30 like at night. So I'm drinking my coffee because I'm gonna stay like until like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Well, hats off to you for that.
For real. Yes. And thank you so much for spending some time with us. So we definitely want to talk about all of the tips and tricks and best practices when it comes to hiring VAs. But why don't you go on ahead and give us a little bit of background about how you came to being the founder and CEO of VAA Philippines, which stands for Virtual Assistants Academy, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I started e-commerce. Actually, I started as a seller. I started selling on eBay, and then it changed to Amazon. It was 2015 when I did the switch to Amazon private label, and it was wow. Things were so different then. It was not easier, but it was really completely different. FBA pretty much just started, and it was fun, and the business grew. I started together with my wife. We watched like a course. We did a course about FBA and Amazon, and then we started selling like hammocks and outdoor equipments, and it went great. I mean, it started to grow, and we after a few months we noticed that we cannot do everything ourselves, and all from the beginning. I knew that I am going to hire my first virtual assistant. And I chose a Filipino VA. I went really deep into it. I took all the time and effort into finding the right person. I interviewed like 50 people over there. I was really sure that I found the best VA out of the bunch. And then I trained her for another month about Amazon, everything I knew about Amazon, so she could help me. And it went great. And after a month, it stopped being that great, and she basically disappeared. She stopped answering my emails, the phone, and
How'd you find her?
Yeah,
it was online jobs. There is like it's a website specifically for hiring Filipino VAs, and not just VAs, actually, for all Filipino jobs. And it was great. The problem was over there not to find a Filipino VA. It was how to know that the 400 people that applied to you, and if you're looking at the resumes, they were all great with experience, with all the qualities and all that. How do you know they're good enough? And I was sure that I found the right person, and it was not the case. And she disappeared, and I had to start all over again with interviews. And because the people that was so great before, they were no longer available, and it was really like a bad experience that I had. And talking with other sellers on Amazon, I realized that this is often the case. They told me, like, you should never hire VAs. It's always like that. They will always disappear. They're not really into it. You should, if you're looking to hire somebody in your office. And I didn't buy that. I thought, that something could be changed. We could do it differently. And that was the start of VAA, to understand that there is a different way to filter and train VAs that will stay with you for years, that will be all in with your business. And this is what we do now.
That's awesome. And I that brings two thoughts to mind. One of which being, I think it's it's so funny to continue to hear the same narrative with the more people we talk to of all these great solutions that are created out of an issue they had when they were e-com sellers, like Sajag with Mavli. He created his company because of his, poor experience with quality control when he was a seller. And then when you were saying that you hired on this VA that was so great in the beginning and then ended up kind of falling off the face of the earth, Nathan Hirsch, I've heard him tell a story before where he had hired a VA and also hired her sister, and she ended up just being the same woman that was saying she was taking on the work of two people and getting paid two salaries, and she was her twin sister and this. So it's crazy. So I guess yes, that's what she had said. But they were just paying her twice. And I don't know how they finally deduced it. I mean, because how can you do that from all the way across the world? So I guess that's one question that I have for you is how are you
Wow.
You can't come in and like interview in person like I did here at Noviland and see that they're real and, really like confirm their credentials. I mean, how do you verify the legitimacy of the people that you're hiring on and see like if they're worth their salt?
Well, I mean, first of all, now I have to talk with Nathan because we have plenty of VAs. It's a full family. I have a husband and wife and the daughter all working as VAs. It's or sister, brother and sister. Well, brother and sister, it's a bit difficult to claim to be the same person, but
right.
but yeah, it happens a lot actually. They need a job and they find it really a great place to work at, and they recommend each other. So yeah, it's tougher, but I think now because of COVID-19 and all, it's much more understandable to all our viewers, because if before people would say like Zoom, what is Zoom? What are you talking about? Now who doesn't know Zoom? It's now a different culture now. Remote workers are everywhere. So also finding the right people, finding them online is done also on that way. And there are a lot of things that you have to know and check, which are different from a standard interview. You have to check things like starting from the basics, like show me your environment. Where are you going to be working for? I mean, how is your office looks like, and what's your internet connection speed, and which computer are you using? So these are the basic things that you're checking now that you wouldn't check in a regular interview. But after that, there are a lot of things that could be misleading if you're just looking at CVs or judging by their experience, which is often, I have to say, often manipulated or exaggerated for sure. I mean, not just in the Philippines, everywhere. When I worked as an employee, it was every worker at McDonald's claims that he's a manager at the big corporation, food corporation. So yeah, there are a lot of things that you have to take in consideration, and this is why it takes more time. For us, it takes almost 2 months until we finish with the filtering process, with the recruitment, and then we go to the next step, which is the training. We don't start training them after a week. It takes time because you need to look at things not just from the first interview. You need to see how motivated they are and how serious they are for the long run, and if they're capable of learning things that you're going to teach them and apply them without mistakes and be there day after day. So you cannot really see that from an interview. So if you're out there thinking I need to hire my first VA, you should know that it will take more time. But after that, it's for years. You're hiring people for years, so you should spend the time needed to interview and to see the person, not just in one time, but during a period of time. We have a full recruitment department just for that.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess on that same point, you mentioned that yourself and your wife realized that you had to scale up the business. What was the position or the work that you were looking to outsource to VAs?
Well, we were selling on Amazon, so it was everything related to Seller Central. I was going to keep PPC for myself in the beginning. I was doing it myself. We didn't even touch base on doing social media or things like that. It's really like somebody taking from us the load of doing customer service and shipment plans, and finding suppliers and products and testing them. All the work that you need as an Amazon seller doing FBA. That was something that I wanted the VA to be doing for me.
Mm.
But were you still doing your own product research and selection?
The idea when I took the first VA, I mean, after that, well, in the big, it's hard to let go. I mean, everywhere I talk to, it's the same, and I had the same problem before. It's hard to let go. Everything you do, you tend to think that you're the only person in the world that is capable of doing that, and nobody can do it as good as you, which might be true, but it doesn't mean that you still have to do everything. So yeah, I was in the beginning still obsessed with finding my own products and negotiating myself with the contractors, with the suppliers, and asking all the right questions. But slowly, I mean, the VA started as, customer service, which also over there I was really into, like zoom in and checking what she's answering and all that. But after a while, you start to develop a system that start to let go and start to understand that people can do things for you, which allows you to have more time to develop, to grow your business and do other things while you still are in the picture. It's crucial to understand, at least in my opinion, that you should know everything that your VA is doing. You should have the same level as her, at least in the beginning. You should know exactly how to do things yourself, and you just decide that you don't want to do them anymore because you want to focus your energy and time on other things. But you should know PPC if you're gonna hire a PPC VA. You should know customer service and how it's done if you want to hire a customer service VA. After that, the next level, if you already know how to work with VAs, if you already have the trust with them and everything else, then you could already, I'm giving my VAs tasks that I have no idea how to do all the time. But it's after I already know, I have the experience to know how to do it, and to whom I'm going to give these tasks to.
So when an Amazon seller or an e-commerce business owner is looking to outsource tasks to a VA, how would you recommend that they select which tasks to outsource? Would it just be anything that's like kind of a daily monotonous thing, or maybe something that they don't have I mean, I know you said that they should have knowledge in whatever they're going to be outsourcing, but maybe it's something they're not as strong in. How would you gear folks to, or in what direction would you steer them of how to choose which task?
Well, I still ask myself the question every time that I'm doing something. I'm asking myself the question, like, am I the only person that has the knowledge and capability of doing the thing that I'm doing now, or can somebody else with the right training, with the right with the right attitude, with the right knowledge, but somebody else can take this task out of my hand and do it for me? If the answer is yes, which means that somebody else can do it, bam, it's going to, eventually it will go to a VA. Doesn't mean that it has to be tomorrow, doesn't mean that I don't have to prepare things before, but it will go to a VA. If the answer is no, this is the only thing that I'm the only person that can do it, nobody else can take these decisions, this is where the money is, this is where the hard decisions are coming from, so I'm going to keep it with me. All the rest you can delegate. It's just a question of trust. It's just a question of, do you know how? So in the beginning, obviously, when you're starting, you should give to VAs the easier tasks, the things that you obviously know how to do, but they're pretty much standard, and the right person with the right attitude and intelligence and English level and all that can do for you. And once you start to get a hang out of it, then you start to think of, okay, what else can I give VAs? But there are tons of things that we have clients that, Amazon sells, that they come to us and they start with the one VA and they're afraid, they think like, what can I give my VA to do? I'm not really sure. I'm doing a lot of things, but I'm not really sure what I can give her to do. So they're taking a VA for like 2 hours a day. And then after a few months, you see that, okay, they want to increase it. And now they're increasing it to 3, 4, 5 hours a day. and a year after, you see them with like 4 VAs. One is doing PPC, one is doing Amazon Sales Central, one is starting to go into social media. So it's really a matter of knowing how to do it, but eventually you see that there's no end to it. You don't have to be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. That's a huge thing you have to understand, which a lot of e-commerce sellers don't really get.
I mean, as much as we try, we just can't, and there's not enough hours in the day.
No.
But we are trying.
There is even a name for it. I mean, they call it like the Superman syndrome, because you think that you're a Superman. I mean, you think that, okay, I'm in front of this computer. I can do everything myself. I know how to do customer service. I saw an email coming in. I can just answer it. I saw, I can just go into the PPC, scroll to PPC and the menu and do everything over there. I know how to adjust the bids and the ACOS and all that. So I should do this as well. And I can write a post. Why not? So I will do the post on my Facebook channel as well. And it never ends because it's all in front of you. It's different from how it used to be back in the old days when people actually had shops and they sold things. So when you open like a shoe store, then that you could not be at the register and be the seller and be the accountant and also be promoting your store in the same time. Somebody opens the restaurant, he cannot be the chef and the server in the same time. It's obvious to them, and they're willing to put 10 times more money into this dream that they have, knowing from the beginning that they will not be able to do everything. They will rent a shop and rent a place. They will hire people without getting even $1 as an income yet, but they will know that this is the way to grow. And suddenly when you're in front of a computer and the game is changing to online, suddenly you're thinking, why should I pay in advance? Why should I hire a VA if I can do it myself? And that's a huge mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that I hadn't considered, is that when you have an in-person job, you physically can't be anywhere, and being behind the computer gives you this false sense of like omnipresence and that you can do anything and everything. That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and business is business, and it's the same.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to convenience too, right? It's if we are behind that computer and we are on Facebook, then we're like, yeah, we could write that post, and you are on your Seller Central app and it's a different tab, and you're like, let me just click over there. I have that issue a lot.
Yeah. The problem is consistency, because you start doing it yourself, and after a week or after a month, you say, I'm gonna post, instead of 2 times a week, I'm gonna move to like one time a week. It's okay, nobody will notice. And I think and you convince yourself that everybody else is posting like once in a week, or maybe like once in 2 weeks, and that's fine. And eventually you say, when I forgot, when was the last time that I posted? Was a month ago or 2 months ago?
Right.
And this is how this is what happens if you don't have somebody dedicated to posting on your Facebook page. If you don't have somebody dedicated to engagement with your audience and finding new followers on Instagram, if you don't have that, then it all depends on you and your ability to do everything.
Yeah, definitely.
But so out of curiosity, how does that work exactly? So when you hire someone that's in person, let's say for the Facebook postings and a lot of the creative, obviously if you hire an in-house marketing person, they get to see the business grow. They get to ask you questions in real time and say, hey, is this, should I find data? Let's just take supply chain, for example. Should I find logistics data? And then how do I put that into the posts? How does that work with VAs? Because I think when it comes to Amazon, a lot of it is brand building, right? A lot of it is customer engagement. A lot of it is managing their Instagram stores and their Instagram channels and, creating new content all the time. But how does that work with a VA? I've always had that question.
Like how is the work the work between the VA and the business owner?
Yeah, well, when it comes to specifically brand and posting and
Mm-hmm.
creating content and creating creative, like how does
Yeah.
that work? But because as a small time brand owner, one would understand like the changing dynamic. I'm selling, let's say pop sockets. I'm not actually selling pop sockets. Pop sockets don't sue me. But if I were selling pop sockets, then I would understand like, hey, all these different use cases for the phones, and I can make cool videos. But how do I translate that to a VA so a VA can take over and say, well, okay, now I can make 20 posts for these specific pieces of content, videos, and 10 posts on Facebook and Instagram. How do they take that away and create that creative?
Well, first of all, if you are a good social media VA, and when we're recruiting social media VAs, we're not really looking into their, like I said before, we're not looking for experience. We're looking at our knowledge. We're looking for potential. We're looking for those that are eager to ask questions and to think, outside the box and to learn more and all that. So when you have people like that, they will know that the first step when starting to work for somebody is really to become a part of the company, to understand the product, to ask the owner. And this is what happens: the owner of the brand will ship the samples of the products to the VA, so they could play with them and see them and understand. And then the next step would be to do a research, like to go over all the reviews of all your competitors, including your own listings, and see what people are complaining about, and check it why it's not working, or why your product is better on that specific point, or what they're happy about, and check how your product works. And then they start to go over all the Facebook groups of your competitors, and start to read all these blogs and YouTube videos, and really get into thinking as the owner of the business, understanding all that, and then asking all the questions. And yes, in the beginning, when you're hiring a social media VA, then you should know that in the first 2-3 weeks, then there's going to be a lot of correspondence between you, and a lot of time you're going to be sharing the screen and available to answer questions, and that's the beauty. But that's what you will do everywhere. Even if you're hiring somebody to sit next to you in the office, they're going to still ask you questions and get to know your brand.
How does that work with the time zone difference?
Yeah.
So first of all, it depends where the seller, and if there is a time difference, because if you're from Australia and you're hiring somebody from the Philippines, it's the same time. But if you're from New York, then it's exactly the opposite, like 12-hour difference between New York Eastern time and Manila time. So then it has to be adjusted. In the beginning, in the first month or so, usually the work would be, the VA will adjust to the hours of work of the seller, of the brand owner. And which means that they will, if you're hiring somebody to work for you like 4 hours a day, then you agree with the VA exactly on which hours that you're going to be available. The VA is going to be available as well. So you're both on the same time available to answer the questions and to see what's going on, to get the reports and all that. Usually after a while, when the VA already knows and understand everything, and it's already starting to become automated, then it's no longer that much big of a deal. The VA could be working, let's say he or she is working for you 4 hours a day, then she could be working for you 1 hour a day in the time that you're available, to give you the reports, to tell you, like, answering questions, tell you what she's been up to and all that. And all the other 3 hours she could do on her own time, in her own hours of work, because she knows what to do already. So it's flexible. When they're working from their homes, it's much more flexible than it is when somebody's working from an office. When somebody's working from an office, it takes them 1 hour and a half to go to the office, 1 hour and a half back, usually with all the traffic, especially in Manila area. And then once they're there, they have their hours of work, and that's it. Once they're back home, it's done. But if they're working from home, it's much more flexible. There is not really such a big deal for somebody who has their own place, so their own room for working at home, to do night shifts and work for you.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so it's pretty common. I would assume specifically in the Philippines for the VAs to be working on US hours then. It's a pretty normal occurrence to see that, right?
Yeah, but like I said, it doesn't have to be that way. In the Philippines they call it graveyard shift, because they're awake all night long, and it's actually daytime in the States or in Canada. But if it's customer service and you need to have somebody answering questions and replying to customers immediately on the phone or by chat, then yeah, that's how it's gonna work. And usually the best way to do it is, in my opinion, is to hire even 2 VAs. So instead of having one VA who's going to be, awake from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m., working, covering the day or less. But instead of having one VA, you could have 2 VAs. The cost would be the same, but they will be, dividing the night into 2, and even one could cover the other in case of sickness or, problems, internet, typhoons, and stuff like that.
That's a good point. Swag, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to that sort of ramp up period for a VA, where you said in those first few weeks and maybe in the first month they're going to be working very closely with the business owner. They're going to be asking questions. Yeah. It's very safe to assume, I would guess, but I know this is a big question that a lot of business owners would have, is that, in those hours that they are researching the competitors, that they are researching the reviews and learning the brand and watching videos and reading blogs, those are all build hours, right? Because they're effectively working in training.
Of course. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I get, sorry for interrupting. There was a question. There was all right. So a lot of time I get a question like, okay, they're doing all this stuff, but and should I, use some kind of a monitoring software that will allow me to really see if they're actually reading the posts and the blogs and doing the work that they should be doing, or maybe they're they're just they're billing me for these hours, but I have no idea what they're doing. So and it's especially, I say that because it happens usually in the beginning. It happens in this time that you're not really sure what the VA is doing, and you're not really sure what you're going to give the VA to do. So you're afraid that you're overpaying. So my answer to this question is that it really depends on the type of VA that you're hiring. If you're hiring a VA that you're not really trusting, or who's really like a low level VA because you really want to pay the lowest amount of money available, and that's it's your decision to do. But if that's the case, then you should use all these tools, and there are tools available that will allow you to be the big brother, getting screenshots, statistics about if the VA was moved their mouse enough and typed the keyword enough during a given hour, and it gives you alerts if it's not. There's no end to this. However, I prefer to invest much more time into the recruitment process, find VAs that I see that they're eager to work for you because they want to prove you that they're 10 times better than what you thought they are. And these type of VAs, if you know how to find them, then it's a different ballgame. With them, you could pretty much relax and know that they're doing what they need to be doing, because they're going to be asking you the questions that you didn't even think of, and you will see that they do things beyond what you were telling them to do, and they will probably bill you less. You told them to work 3 hours. In fact, they work 4 hours, but they only gonna charge you for 3 because they don't want you to think that they're working too much. But it was important enough for them to go beyond your expectations. So it really depends on the people that you're hiring, more than you wasting your time on monitoring them endlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a common fear, not necessarily for VAs, definitely for VAs, but also for just business owners that are hiring people remotely nowadays.
In general.
And just learning how that works, right? Because usually you would have someone in the office. You can, even if you can't exactly see what they're doing on the screen, it's safe to assume they're working. They're in the office, they're surrounded by their coworkers. It's safe to assume that they're working. But I think COVID really emphasized that there is this potential but it's that misconception, or not really a misconception, but it's a few bad apples or a few bad actors that it just takes a few bad stories, right, for someone to say, hey, I was scammed by a VA. They did spend, a month's worth of work doing absolutely nothing, and then they never responded to me. How do you get over some of those fears, I guess? And I know you said it's through the vetting and through that initial process, but do you have some red flags or indicators that would tell you that they're not exactly working, or training or doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Going back to what you said, I used to work in an office, and I can tell you that people can sit in front of your computer and it doesn't mean anything.
Just not do anything.
It doesn't mean anything. And then you see them in the kitchen making coffee for half an hour, then going to to the balcony, staying and talking. And eventually they could be much more productive when working from home, as long as you know how to work with them. And working remotely doesn't have to be less effective. I think it's more effective, but you need to know what you're doing. The best way that I use is to prepare myself in advance, like to think what's going to be the schedule of the VA, what she's going to be doing in her first hour of work, second hour of work, what she's going to be doing on Monday, Tuesday, and what's different on Wednesday. Really create a schedule. Like on every day you're working for me 3 hours a day. So on the first hour, you're going to do customer service. You're going to be looking at your emails. You're really creating SOPs, creating a list of work that you know exactly. Okay, now it's between 9 to 10. She's going over the emails. She's doing A, B, C, whatever it is that you thought and that you wanted her to do. And then today is Monday, so on her second hour, she's supposed to start doing competitor research, and I will see that in the report that she's going to give me. So first of all, to really, from the beginning, don't let it hang in the air, and say to her, okay, do the work, and I'm not really sure what you're going to be doing, but really prepare things for her according to the hours, and also create some goals and targets, and okay. You know what should be the job that she's doing, because you were doing that before, most likely. So you know how much time it should take, and you know what are the things that she's going to be doing for you. So you could also set goals. Like you could say, okay, you're doing customer service, great. Answering, or you're going to go over reviews of, you have 200 reviews to go over, and tell me what are the best keywords that people are using. Perfect. In the first day, I'm expecting you to give me reports after you went over 40 reviews. But in the next week, in the same time, I will be already expecting you to do 50 or 60 or 70, because you're gonna get the hang out of it, and I want to see a change. So a lot of time setting up goals and targets is a great way to make sure. And also the reports. Make sure that the VA will send you, in the end of her shift, everyday reports. The reports should not be just what she was doing, and try to be as specific as possible. Like, what do you really want her to do? Don't just tell her to say, okay, I was looking for information about posting on Facebook, but really tell you where she, like, which site she visited, which articles, send you links, until you really you base this trust. And that's the way I think you should be working. Set up goals, and the report should be detailed, and also give her a place to ask you questions, tell her and tell you which problems she encountered, like where was the difficulty, how she solved these difficulties, and is there anything that you could help her tomorrow to make a better work. And really insist on letting her speak, letting her tell her opinion, what did not work, how she could do things better. What did I tell you to do that you think is a bad idea? What do you think you could do better? And that's a great way to work with VAs, in my opinion.
Is that sometimes a difficult mindset shift for e-commerce owners? Because I think that it's easy to get stuck in the thought of, this is just a VA, I'm handing them a task. whatever happens, I can just go get another one, as opposed to seeing them as a member of your team, because they're vital to helping your business grow. Do you sometimes see that that's difficult for folks to get a hold of?
All the time. We're really, at VAA Virtual Assistant Academy, I think the entire idea that we have VAs that stick with us for years, not disappear after a month, is because they feel connected to what we are, what we stand for, and they have the same spirit as what we're looking for, and that's all about. It all depends on us. We celebrate their birthdays. We make with them games and the game of the month and the competitions, and they hang out together in the Philippines, and they meet the managers, and we create for them some karaoke evenings, and we last time we hired a chef, and we have 140 VAs. So we hired a chef, and the chef went on Zoom and showed, gave like a seminar of how to cook things, Filipino things, and it's all about that. You have to think that somebody on the other side is not just there to give you the task that you wanted to, and then in the end of the day, that's it. I can have another VA tomorrow, because then the VA will have the same thought. They will think, okay, I can have another seller tomorrow, and then you're going to be wasting 4, 5, 6 months of training that person who's going to disappear tomorrow because somebody else offered them 10 cents more an hour, and for them, it's what's the difference? This guy is going to dump me anyway if things do not go as planned, so I might as well take the other job. So it's when sellers, when they're working with us, that they see the way that we're working with our VAs, and we keep training them all the time, and give them higher level of responsibilities and things like that, then the VA start to become, they feel like this is their home. This is where they want to be in the next 10 years. And then they would not leave because somebody else offered them even 2 times more, because they feel like this guy is going to keep me no matter what, because I'm committed to them and they're committed to me. And that's what you should be interested about. You should be asking the VA how was their day, and how's the family, and you should know and be really interested and want to visit them in the Philippines if possible, and see how see their family, and send them gifts, and feel as if they were sitting in your office, and not somebody out there who's just going to be doing tasks for you. That's a huge difference between a VA that's going to leave you, and no matter how much you invested in that person, or somebody who's going to stay with you for years. We have VAs for over 5 years with us, and that's the reason why, I think.
That's awesome. Birthday as I am. So full disclosure, we have a VA that helps out with our podcast. So Paul, honey, when you're editing this, send me your birthday.
I can send you his birthday.
Yeah. Thank you. Please do.
Well, to be completely frank, it's an experience that I wasn't expecting when we started working with Mary, which is, I believe, one of the managers, or no, is
executive assistant.
Yeah, executive assistant. And she has helped break down a lot of this. A lot of what you're talking about today, I think, is what a lot of business owners are not necessarily scared of, but they're just not well educated in. And your executive assistant was able to educate us in a lot of this, and gave us kind of a crash course even throughout the onboarding process. Mm-hmm. And so I guess it's there is a huge benefit in working with something like, VAA Philippines versus trying to find someone yourself through, the Filipino job postings, or through maybe some of the other services. You said you had over 100 VAs part of your team. 140 VAs part of your team. Is that mostly for Amazon? Well, I guess I know it's all for Amazon, but how would you divide that up between like the social media experts and the PPC specialists? And are there percentages between them?
Well, most of them, we have 4 departments at VA. We have the Amazon VAs, which is basically everything in Seller Central, including like customer service, shipment plans, opening cases with Amazon if things do not go as planned, checking your listings, creating new listings, all that. That's the Amazon VAs. That's the majority of the VAs. We have PPC VAs, who's obviously they're completely different people. They're all into numbers and Excel and data, and all that. And they're all about creating your campaigns and managing them. We have social media VAs. Again, it's a completely different character of type of VAs, and they're all about Facebook, Instagram, newsletters, working with influencers and all that. And the fourth department is the creative department. It's graphic designers, photographers, and video editors. And yeah, I would say the biggest part is the Amazon VAs, and then it's pretty much divided between the other three. You mentioned before about your experience, and I think this is really one of our engagement and responsibilities, not to throw a VA at you and wish you good luck, but really to help you to understand how to work with a VA, especially with, for example, with Amazon VAs or with PPC VAs, that with a video editor, that it's more that already, what you need, and the video editors will provide, but project based. But with an Amazon VA who's going to be working for you now 4 hours a day, every day, or more or less, but somebody who's going to be really like working for you every day, then it's different, because you're not necessarily going to know how to work with her, and you're going to do a lot of mistakes. And our responsibility is not just to support the VAs in the way that I mentioned before, with trainings and updates and like an academy, but it's also to support the sellers with giving them a lot of tips and how to avoid mistakes, and how to prepare for their arrival of the VAs, and how to do a correct onboarding, and how to spend the first 2 or 3 weeks. And like you mentioned to me before we started this live, that when I asked you about Paul, and he said, in the beginning it went a certain way, and then it developed. So it's really important to know that, and to know what to expect, and to know that things go uphill, but it's not a fire and forget. Things develop over time.
Absolutely. You have to invest the time into it. And your team does do a really good job of kind of mitigating those conversations, because we were definitely in communications with Paul too, but then we did sit down with your team and we were like, okay, let's get a much clearer idea of what exactly the scope of these projects is going to be. What can we improve upon after the first one? What do we need to do moving forward? So yeah, your team does a really spectacular job of that. Just a
thank you.
Nod to them.
Yeah, and I love the concept of departmentalizing, or is that the right word? I think switching everything into departments.
Yeah, I think you're looking for compartmentalizing, but I don't know that that's the correct application.
Yeah, don't ask me.
We'll run with it. I love the way that you departmentalize your Amazon services also, because I mean, when you think about the stores, you're making it very tangible. A physical store owner, they can't have someone that's stocking and running the cash register and running accounting, unless you have a very small bodega that you can probably easily do that. But at a standard brick and mortar store, you can't do that. So it sounds like the way that you do it is you separate all these into specialties, which I think is another thing that a lot of Amazon sellers can't get over, that hurdle. Just like you were saying before, that they don't know the work that they could give them. But you started listing off also, well, now we're on Facebook, so now we're actually creating some social media posts. Now we're on Amazon, so I'm optimizing a few listings. I'm going to check on my PPC campaigns. So you are still putting all of these within set departments, which is something I appreciate. I don't know of anyone else that actually does that. When it comes to putting like an actual title on a VA. And I think that's something that a lot of Amazon sellers tend to struggle with. Is that something else that you help them out with? You just, do you probe to ask them some of their questions, or some of the struggles that they have at the time?
Yeah, I mean, what you said before is true. And when we do have the departments, like I said, and eventually, I think it's not the same person. It's not the same type of person to do customer service and to do PPC. It could be the same person if you wanted to, and the ones that finish all our recruitment process, then we check them and see that they're they could be doing both, but one is going to be all about numbers and Excels and mathematics, and he's going to be much more into PPC, and it's much better to give him to handle only PPC, and that's fine if you want to hire them for 2 hours a day, and that's it. And in the same time, hire another VA who's going to be focusing only on your customer service, and that's going to be somebody much more customer service oriented, who's really feeling and understanding the clients. And a lot of time it doesn't go together. It's really two different type of characters. And this is why I believe that it's much better. I work that way myself. I mean, I prefer to hire 2 or 3 VAs each time, each one of them working for me part-time, than hiring one VA who's going to be, again, with the Superman idea, doing everything. So that's prove themselves, and yeah, our job is really to if there are any problems or questions or things do not go as planned, then we have the department manager who's going to be helping the seller and helping the VA and making sure that things go well all the way, and if needed, even to replace the VA if things do not go as planned.
So these sellers that you guys are working with, do they have to be making X number of dollars a year to be eligible to get a VA? Or do you think, I mean, at what size of a business? I think Francois had said before that you made a LinkedIn post about you don't have to be making $1 million a year to need a VA.
Yeah, it's a good question, because we have both type of sellers coming to us, and we have the type of sellers already selling big time, and they need VAs because they just cannot handle everything themselves. There's so much to do, and yet we also have VA sellers that come to us and they say, look, I've just started. I'm on the point of finding my first product. I've been doing that for already 3 months now, but I'm married. I have kids. I have another job because I'm still trying to do these 2 things in the same time, and I just don't find the time to do everything. And I see the way it's going to go. Then eventually it will take me another 3 years just to find the product and to manage 20 different suppliers until I find the right one. So for that person, the VA could be the only way out, and to succeed, and because they cannot just do anything else. That's their only possibility, and so it doesn't really matter how much money you make. It matters where you're stuck. If you could understand that you're not advancing the way things are doing now, or there are a lot of other things that you could do by hiring a VA, then you should hire a VA. And I know that if you're a big company, then it's easier to hire a VA because you're already going to have the budget for it. But also if you're a new seller, like I mentioned that before, you should know how to do things yourself, because now you're going to be changing from doing it all yourself to managing somebody else who's going to be doing things for you, but you're still going to be managing that person. So you need to know what they're doing. But even if you're just starting and you have a limited budget, it's still a question if it's an investment. It's an investment in your growth. And like we gave the example before of somebody opening a restaurant who's going to invest money in something that does not exist yet, and is but going to bring him a lot of money later, and that's an investment they should do. The same thing, you should ask yourself a question like, this is going to be a part of your budget. You're going to have some budget of finding the right product and creating 500 units as a starter, for example. So that you have to have enough money to do that and to put into advertising. And in my point of view, a VA should be a part of these calculations. And sometimes I see these sellers that are all I know that they will get there, because from the very beginning they say to us, look, we're doing this and we're going to hire a VA, and we already have it figured out. We know exactly what we want the VA to be doing for us, and I see that they're just starting, but I see that they're already understanding the potential of having a VA, having another person helping you succeed and grow.
That was great.
Yeah, that was
I love how all
that was
encompassing that answer
inspirational.
was. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't just hit the nail on the head. It was inspiring. I think, even we find ourselves doing a lot of day-to-day tasks, particularly with Noviland still being a startup, and we're still a very small team. And just launching the podcast, for example, we saw that Lisa was obviously spending a lot of time with video editing, and we thought about it for a long time. And Lisa, your time could be better put to use here,
right,
on the actual podcast instead of editing. So we were like, well, how can we open up that time? And I think it was actually Yanni of Gatita that put us in contact. Great guy, and I'm glad that he did, and I'm glad that this was able to free up a lot of Lisa's time also. And we're very happy with Paul.
Yes.
So we're glad. Yeah, all around. It's it's something where a lot of people can sort of talk the talk, but when they put it into action, it becomes different. And I think just this one case where we are able to use VA and it is able to free up a lot of time, that can attest to, hey, maybe now next could be posting our actual podcast and uploading them. So we'll have another conversation after this, Gilad.
Yeah.
Before you go to bed, we're going to be the last thing.
VAs.
Yeah, we're going to be the last thing you talk to before you go to bed tonight.
I'm not sure that you're going to be the last person I'm going to be talking with. But
it's 2 a.m. 2 a.m. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we still have time. But yeah, it was great, and I think and thank you for mentioning Yoni. Is great. Is great guy. We talk in Hebrew when we talk.
That's awesome.
But yeah.
That's great.
Guy's crazy. He was speaking to me in Spanish when I first met him.
Really?
And then he asked me if I speak French. He was speaking to me in Spanish. Yeah. I think he knows 5, 6 languages, maybe. I'm gonna have to confirm that with him. But he knows a lot of languages. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, yeah, that's next week already.
Next week? 2 weeks from now?
2 weeks? 2 weeks from now.
I don't remember anymore. 2 weeks from now, I think.
Getting sidetracked. Yeah. It's my fault.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is crazy that once you hire your first VA, it's something that you like absolutely need. And then you just start thinking like, oh, there's all of these other tasks that they can help us with. And obviously, VA Philippines, y'all mainly help with Amazon sellers and, Amazon tasks, but obviously we use you guys. So you can help businesses in various facets, right? So long as they're kind of, I mean, with the video editing, I guess really anybody can use you guys, right?
Yeah. And it's true. I mean, when you're hiring a VA, then suddenly like you start to think, okay, what can I give her or him to do, and it pushes you actually to do more things, because now you're paying somebody, right? So now you're paying for the hours somebody is doing what you're going to give them to do, and now you have this free time. So what are you going to do in order to justify the time that you have? So it starts to put the wheels in motion. And a lot of times that's a reason for growth. And yeah, we do focus on Amazon sellers. I mean, that's our specialty. However, most of Amazon sellers, once they start selling on big volumes on Amazon, then they're looking for other platforms to sell from. And a lot of sellers, they're also using our VAs for doing Shopify and or video editing or graphic designing and all that. And eventually, if you're hiring a good person, if the person that you're hiring was filtered enough and has the capabilities of learning new things and the motivation to do it, then they could do everything.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought about one VA that I think a lot of first-time Amazon sellers could use, and even established businesses, and that's more on the supply chain side, but it can very much be useful to Amazon sellers, and that's putting together requests for quotes. That's gathering specifications, that's understanding, the budgets, the Amazon FBA fees that need to be calculated, and what they need to sell at, and then doing that at scale. So instead of having, again, going back to the pop socket, instead of just looking at that pop socket, it's maybe looking at a pop socket and looking at different accessories for phones and building the brand around that, and then having a VA put together those specs, because that is a hard part. That's a part that takes 5 to 10 hours in some cases to, find the materials, to find the dimensions, to find CAD files if you have to customize them in any way, and gathering all this and sending it off to a supplier. I mean, that's very time consuming. When you multiply that across 10 SKUs, if you want to have a goal of 10 SKUs over 6 months, and you're spending 5 hours each, that's almost a full work week right there with just a VA.
Yeah.
Is that something else that I guess your VAs or the VAs on your team would be able to help out with?
Yeah, definitely. That's what we call the Amazon VAs, and this is why an Amazon VA doesn't necessarily have to do Amazon, because the shipment from from Shopify, it's different buttons, but the idea would be the same. And so definitely, also, what, when I sold on Amazon and I was looking for a supplier, then I had limited time, so I interviewed one, and then I thought, okay, I should interview and ask questions and get quotes from a second, and maybe a third, and maybe a fourth supplier. But that was pretty much it. I chose one of them, and you know what? When you have a VA who could be interviewing 50 suppliers and really asking them the questions and giving you a report, like this guy, he said the minimum at the MOQ would be 200 units, and this guy is 500 units, and he replied within 2 hours, that the other one replied within 3 days. And it helps you to get everything figured out, and then you can say, okay, now focus on these 4 and ask them if they could create a sample for us. And it's much easier. You're starting to manage instead, but you're doing things differently now in a better way, because you have somebody dedicated to doing it better than you.
That's awesome. I think if anybody was on the fence about getting a VA for their Amazon business before watching this, they're not on the fence anymore.
Yeah, they could manage their Noviland account. They could submit the request for quotes on Noviland too. There you go. I mean, you want to optimize your RFQs, right? You want to optimize how many suppliers that you get and what your options are. And a lot of times it just comes down to time. It comes down to, hey, I don't want to log on to Alibaba and submit an RFQ there and reach out to or do research on the 20 different pop socket suppliers, and see what their MOQs are and see their level of communication, just like you were saying, which is so important. But you can create templates and create SOPs, which are not easy. I mean, at least I created a few SOPs I know so far, and I mean, you could talk on that experience.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things, and we had talked about this before. When I was in middle school, I think you said the peanut butter jelly thing. We had a robot in my middle school, I think, and they said write down the steps to having the robot write the number 4. I don't know, and all you think is I don't know, line. All the kids in the class were there's 4 steps to it. And then it's no, you have to tell the robot to go over to the pen, open hand, pick up pen. So it's writing the SOPs, you really have to think about all of the different steps that go into it and how intricate of a process that is. And then if you want to show them how to do it, you can make the videos and, send them pictures and stuff. So, but it's an investment at the front end for something that's going to save you so much more time and money at the back end of it and in the long run. So I think that in my opinion, hiring the VA to help with your business is just outsourcing your supply chain management. It's all about freeing up your time to be more strategic and work on your business instead of in your business. So,
and you know what, I can tell you, you mentioned the SOPs. I give you, I don't know if it's an advice or a tip, or if it's just the way that I think that, from my experience, it's better to do is it's a different way of thinking, is give your VA to do the SOPs instead of you creating all the work for your VA, so your VA will be able to already, having everything figured out and seeing, okay, you do 1 and then you go do 2, 3, 4, and it's all written down, but it means that you will have to spend so much time and effort into creating these SOPs, and it makes you think and think what went wrong. But the way that I like to work with my VAs is that we share the screen. I create a video and I show them what needs to be done. I show them, for example, how to do customer service, and we go over different options and we go over different buttons, and it's all recorded. So the VA will be looking at it after, and he or she will be looking at it like 5 times and creating an SOP according to the things that we talked about and the way that I show him what needs to be done. And then after that, I only need to see the SOP and I say, okay, first of all, it's a way for me to see if the VA got it right, or are
paying
the things that
attention
we're not paying attention and got it right, or maybe things were not explained correctly. And also it makes me think, wait a minute, but he was not talking at all about this subject. And then I can, it gives me just, okay, now let's have another video just about this option, what happens if. And then the VA will create another SOP, and, will make the SOP better, but he will create it. It will be his time of learning, and it will be also beneficial for the company, because now you can use the SOPs for yourself and for other VAs, or if this VA will be forced to leave at a certain point, then you will have somebody else, and it's already been created.
It's a really good idea. Point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We can try that. Let's try that out.
Yeah, we're going to do that. Well,
we got some actionable insights here.
Yeah, we have. And hopefully everybody else listening has too, listening or watching. And we've come up on our hour. So Gilad, we're going to give you one more opportunity just to plug VAA. I've actually got your website right here. Bam, in case anybody is interested of you, and what can they use VAA for?
Well, we, like I said before, we're all about Amazon and e-commerce in general. Our job is to allow Amazon sellers or e-commerce sellers to focus on growing their business instead of doing every possible task in their business. We do it by recruiting the best VAs that we can find in the Philippines with a long and thorough recruitment process that takes over 2 months. We then train them specifically on the things that they will need to know on Amazon, on PPC, on social media, and on designing. And we help the sellers to know how to work with the VAs, and we support them and the VAs throughout the years with external trainings all the time. So that's pretty much what we do. We make life easier for Amazon sellers if they want to grow their business using VAs.
Perfect. And if people want to get a hold of you about anything that you've shared with us today, or if they have any questions, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Through the site, or?
Either through the site, there is a contact us option over there, or just write an email to service@vaaphilippines.com. And both ways will lead them eventually to having a meeting with one of our managers or with myself.
Okay, perfect. And I'll include that email address in the description of this video on YouTube and on the audio version.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Gilad. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We're going to go on ahead and sign off. Francois, anything else before we end?
No, I'm excited to continue working with you and your team, and you guys are doing a great job, and I think there's a lot of potential with VAs, and more Amazon sellers should definitely explore the option. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your advice and wisdom also in that VA space.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, both so much. Thank you for everybody watching and listening. Again, this was Link Up Leaders, and we'll see y'all next week.